Welcome back to the channel where stories speak louder than thunder. Today's tale starts under a cloudy sky, in a small town where silence had weight and gossip moved faster than wind. He was only 10, short for his age, but his eyes were always watching things others ignored. His school uniform was never neat, his sandals were always too big, and his voice was the kind people often spoke over. But he noticed her. The girl that walked like she didn't want to be seen. Hair shaved off, clothes faded, eyes always on the ground. They said she did something shameful. Nobody really knew what. But when something sticks in a town like theirs, it spreads like pepper in your eye, it burns and blinds. She stopped answering questions in class. Stopped eating during break. Stopped laughing. That morning, the wind was wild. The pupils gathered outside, waiting for the school gate to open. She stood by herself, arms folded, shivering. Her blouse had holes at the shoulder, her skirt had a tear. And the boys were already whispering, nudging each other, ready to poke fun. Then he walked up to her, this small boy with his too big sandals and too thin frame. He didn't say anything. He just took off his coat, the brown one his mum had sewn patches on, and placed it gently over her shoulders. She looked up, startled. Everyone else stared. Someone laughed nervously. But he didn't flinch. "You're cold," he said, like that was all that mattered. Like her story, her shame, her silence didn't scare him. She didn't speak. But something changed in her eyes, not wide, not shiny, but steady. She pulled the coat closer and didn't drop her gaze. And from that moment, the whispering began to sound less sharp. Something cracked in the crowd. Not loud, but you could feel it. The school bell rang, but it wasn't the loudest thing that morning. The wind didn't stop that day, but something else did, the whispers. Not all at once. Just enough to notice. She wore the coat like armor. Not proudly, not boldly, just tightly, like she needed it to stay standing. He didn't expect a thank you. He didn't follow her around either. He just stood next to her during assembly, as if her silence was normal and her shame didn't belong. By lunchtime, the whispers turned into side eyes. Someone hissed, "Why him?" Another said, "He must not know what she did." But none of them really knew either. They only repeated what older people said, things picked from corners of conversations, twisted and passed around like chewing gum. She sat alone on the back bench, legs crossed, head down. Her bread was dry, but she nibbled it slowly. He walked over again, sat beside her, opened his own piece of akara wrapped in nylon, and placed it between them. "You like pepper?" he asked. She blinked, surprised. Then nodded, once. "Good. My mum doesn't know how to manage it." She smiled, a small one, hidden in the corner of her mouth like she didn't want anyone to catch it. But he saw it, and it stayed with him longer than the taste of the akara. By the time the bell rang, the two of them had eaten in silence. But it wasn't the heavy silence from before. It was the kind that didn't need explaining. The kind that felt okay. Later, as the class filed back in, the teacher glanced at her and paused. Then she looked at the boy. Her eyes narrowed just a bit. But she said nothing. Two desks were now close. Nobody knew when that happened, but nobody moved them back either. The others kept whispering, but they had to whisper softer now. The boy with the coat had changed the rhythm. And the girl who used to walk like air couldn't touch her was now walking just a little straighter. The next day, something happened that made the whole school pause, not with noise, but with silence. He came into class with a scratch on his cheek and dust on his knees. His sandals were torn on one side, and the side of his shirt had mud on it. But he still smiled like nothing touched him. Nobody asked what happened. Not at first. She was already seated when he arrived, hugging the coat like it held her together. When he sat beside her, she turned. Her eyes dropped to his shirt, then to the mark on his cheek. She didn't speak, but her lips tightened. "Stupid stone," he said, trying to brush it off with a grin. Didn't like me walking past those boys. They knew who he meant, the ones that hung around the fence during break, the ones who made jokes just loud enough for her to hear. He didn't fight them. He just refused to move away when they tried to block him. And when one pushed him, he fell hard. They laughed. He didn't. Later that day, the teacher told everyone to draw a picture of what kindness looks like. The boy drew a bench. Just a simple wooden bench under a mango tree, with two small people on it. One had a coat, the other had crooked sandals. When she handed hers in, her paper only had one thing, the coat. Drawn neatly, carefully, colored in brown. She didn't draw herself. She didn't draw him. Just the coat, centered on the page like it was a whole story. After class, as they packed their bags, she finally spoke. "Why did you do it?" she asked, still not looking directly at him. He blinked, surprised. "Do what?" "Give me your coat." He paused, then shrugged. "Because you looked cold." She stared at him. Then, slowly, her lips pressed into something close to a smile. Not shy this time. Just calm. "Thank you," she said. It wasn't loud. But loud things aren't always the ones that shake walls. They thought he would stop. That he would back away after getting pushed, after the whispers turned sharper. But he didn't. He kept sitting beside her. Kept sharing food. Kept acting like she was just another classmate, not the girl everyone said should be avoided. That day, during games period, the boys gathered in their usual corner. She wasn't playing, as usual. She stayed behind, legs tucked under her on the classroom bench, watching them run, jump, and cheer. Then a boy shouted her name, loud, mocking. "Hey! Are you too dirty to play with us?" Another laughed. Then another joined. The boy with the coat dropped his skipping rope and marched up to them. "You go and say that again," he said, voice flat but steady. The tallest of them stepped forward. "You won fight." He didn't answer. He just stood. Small, skinny, barefoot. But his chin stayed up. One of them pushed him again. He staggered back, but still didn't raise his fists. His hand stayed by his side. The teacher had told them, fighting brings cane. But he knew standing still was also a kind of fight. "She no fit sit with us," one of the boys shouted. He turned to them and said, "But I can." Then he walked back, picked up the skipping rope, and returned to her. She didn't speak, but when he placed the rope in her hand, she held it. And for the first time, she played. Awkward at first, too stiff, then with a little bounce. Then a jump. Then laughter, soft, but there. Some girls started clapping. That was the day the whispers began to sound confused. That was the day someone said, "She's not so bad." And the boy with the coat, still dusty from being pushed, sat and smiled, like nothing big had happened. But something had. That afternoon, something unexpected happened. As the pupils filed out of class, someone found folded paper on the floor, tucked neatly under the girl's desk. It was the class monitor that picked it up. She opened it. Curiosity moved faster than manners. Her eyes scanned the words once, then twice. She blinked. "Who wrote this?" she asked, holding it up like a snake. The teacher collected it. Silence fell as she read the short sentences, written in small, careful handwriting. "I didn't do what they said. I don't know how to explain it. But even if I did, does that mean I should be treated like dirt? I miss laughing. I miss walking with my head up. I miss being seen." No name was on it. But everyone's eyes turned to the girl with the coat. Her face went red. Her hands dropped to her lap. The teacher said nothing. She folded the note, placed it in her drawer, and carried on like nothing happened. But everyone was staring now, not with hate, not with fear. Just questions. Break time came. She stayed in the classroom, frozen, staring at the desk. He returned from the school tap with 2 bags of water, walked in, and saw her. "They saw it," she whispered. He nodded. "Good." Her eyes widened. "Good." He handed her one of the water bags and sat beside her. "You wrote what everyone needed to hear," he said. "Even me." She looked at him like he'd just spoken magic. No one had ever called her words needed. Outside, the whispering had changed shape. This time it wasn't sharp like before. It was hushed, thoughtful. Some girls sat in groups, asking if it was true. One boy said, "It's not fair, Shaw. Even if she did something." That night, the girl walked home slower. Not because she was afraid, but because her head felt less heavy. And the coat. It still sat on her shoulders. Not for warmth anymore. But because it had become part of her. The next day brought rain, not the gentle kind, but the loud, stubborn one that soaked uniforms before you reached the gate. Pupils ran in every direction, covering their heads with books, plastic, anything. But she didn't show up. The bell rang. First period passed. Then second. Her seat stayed empty. He stared at it too many times. During break, he asked the teacher if he could step out. She looked at him, then nodded. No questions. He didn't carry an umbrella. Just his torn sandals, a plastic bag for his exercise books, and his legs that didn't care about mud. Her house wasn't far. He had passed it once, not on purpose, just following her one afternoon at a distance. When he got there, the zinc roof echoed the rain like a drum. He knocked. No one answered. He called softly through the gap in the wooden window. A woman opened the door, tired face, wrapper tied loosely, eyes half shut. "Who are you?" she asked, voice flat. "I'm her classmate," he said. "I just wanted to check if she's okay." The woman blinked. "She's inside. Sleeping. She's not sick. She just doesn't want to go." He nodded. "Can I leave this for her?" He pulled out a dry biscuit, half wrapped in nylon, and placed it on the step. "Tell her we were counting her seat today." The woman stared at him for a moment, then gave a slow, tired nod. He walked back through the muddy street, soaked but not bothered. When he returned to class, someone asked, "Where you go?" "To check something," he replied. After school, as the rain slowed, he found one of his sandals missing. Somewhere between the school gate and the market road, it had slipped off. He walked the rest of the way barefoot. But his heart didn't feel bare. The next morning, she was in class. Hair neatly combed. Shirt still old, but buttoned well. The coat on her lap, folded. And beside it, a small nylon, with half a biscuit inside. The classroom felt different that day. She walked in without flinching. Her steps weren't loud, but they didn't whisper anymore. The coat wasn't on her shoulders, it was folded, resting on her lap like a choice, not a shield. When she sat down, a girl 2 seats away shifted closer. No words. Just a simple move that said, "You're not alone." The teacher entered, carrying a small bundle of exercise books. As she began to mark the board, she paused. "Everyone, bring out your English notes," she said. "We're learning how to write letters, real ones, not just answers." The boy raised his hand. "Can it be to anyone?" She looked at him. "Anyone, yes." He nodded. Then bent his head and began to write. At the end of the period, they handed in their letters. The teacher read a few out loud. One to a cousin in the village. One to a father working in Benin. Then she opened his. It said, "Dear someone who thinks they don't matter. I saw you when others didn't. You didn't do anything wrong. You just got caught in people's words. You still matter. Even if you think your voice is too small. You helped me see what bravery looks like. It's quiet, but it stands tall. From someone who's still learning. The class went still. No name was mentioned. But everyone looked at her. Her eyes glistened. She didn't cry. But she blinked slower, deeper. At the end of the day, as they packed up, she didn't rush to leave like before. She stood by his desk. "That letter," she said. He raised his eyebrows, pretending not to know. "I liked it," she added, before turning away. Outside, the sun had come out again. A small group of girls waited for her near the gate. One offered groundnuts. Another asked, "You're coming tomorrow, right?" And for the first time in weeks, she didn't look down as she answered, "Yes." Things had shifted, gently but clearly. The girl who once sat alone now walked through the gate with quiet company. The boys who used to point and snicker now kept their jokes to themselves. Even the school gatekeeper started greeting her with a full sentence. One afternoon, during art period, the teacher asked the class to draw a memory they wanted to keep forever. Some pupils drew birthday cakes. Some drew their parents. One boy drew a football goal with his name on the scoreboard. She drew a coat again. But this time, it was hung on a chair beside a window, with sun pouring in. On the table next to it was a cup of water and a biscuit. He looked at the drawing and smiled. "Why always the coat?" he teased. She looked at him, thoughtful. "Because it was the first time someone saw me, not the story." He didn't say anything. Just nodded. That Friday, the principal visited their class. A big event, white shirt tucked in, tie straight, glasses halfway down his nose. He came to inspect, but also to choose pupils for a regional writing competition. The teacher handed him the stack of English letters they had written earlier in the week. As he read through them, he paused at one. "This one has no name," he said. "But it sounds like it was written from the heart." He read it again, the same letter the boy had written, "Dear someone who thinks they don't matter." When he finished, the class clapped. Not because they were told to. It just came naturally. "Who wrote this?" the principal asked. The boy raised his hand, slowly. The principal smiled. "You're in." The girl turned to him, grinning softly. "Looks like your small handwriting is going places." He chuckled. "It's not the handwriting. It's who I was writing to." That moment didn't need music or banners. Just the quiet pride between two children who had taught each other how to stand. It was the first time in many weeks that anyone saw her laugh, not the quiet, tight-lipped one, but a real laugh, full and light. It happened when he tripped on his own shoelace during cultural dance rehearsal. He wasn't supposed to be dancing. He was just helping the music boy set the drum. But somehow, he spun, slipped, and landed on his back with arms wide like a fallen star. The class burst into laughter. But hers stood out, not loudest, not longest, but the sweetest. He sat up, wiping dust from his elbow. "At least now you've laughed. I can retire in peace." She shook her head, still giggling. "You dance like a chicken that stepped on soap." Even the teacher smiled. After school, as they walked to the gate, he looked at her and asked, "So, you're back now?" She nodded slowly. "I think so." The boy didn't ask for details. He never did. But that evening, as she reached her street, she stopped. "You know," she said, turning toward him, "they blamed me for something I didn't do. And when I said nothing, they filled in their own story." He looked at her, quiet. "I didn't know how to fight back," she added. "But you gave me your coat like it was nothing." "It was just a coat," he said softly. "No," she replied. "It was the only thing that made me feel human again." They stood there a moment longer, the late sun touching their faces. "See you Monday?" he asked. She smiled. Early. She walked away, steady steps, head up. He watched until she turned the corner. That night, he washed the coat for the first time. The patches were still there, the buttons mismatched. But to him, it looked newer. He hung it by the window where the air was softest. He didn't need to wear it anymore. But he would never stop carrying what it meant. The town had changed, but slowly, like the river that carves stone over years. The story of the boy and the girl was whispered now, not to shame, but to remember. At school, the coat was never worn again. It rested folded in a small box in the boys' room, a quiet treasure. He kept writing. Letters, stories, even little poems. Some were for himself, some for people like her, those caught in silence or shadow. She found her voice too. Not loud, but steady. She joined the school choir, sang softly, and smiled more. One day, the boy's mother asked, "Why do you keep that old coat, patched and torn?" He smiled. "It's not just cloth. It's the story of kindness when no one else gave me a reason to hope." Years later, people would tell the story of a small boy who gave away his coat to a girl who had been forgotten. A boy who taught a town that kindness doesn't have to be loud to change the world. Sometimes, the smallest actions are the strongest. Because when you see someone, really see them, you give them a place to stand again. And that is a gift worth more than any coat.